I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.
Welcome to Coach's Corner. Today we got Mike Pascale with us. And, you know, boxing kind of gives us a lot of different people, and we really have a little bit of behind the scenes. Mike Pascale was a boxing commissioner,
Correct.
assistant boxing commissioner,
Executive director.
executive direction of boxing in the state of New York, and then was an interim commissioner for the state of New York, also for
Correct.
the Boxing Commission. Mike, I really appreciate you coming down here today. We've been talking, you know, through our mutual friend John Carlo, and it's really great to have you here because, you know, people see a lot of different things in boxing, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. And you work directly, you know, New York being the big three commission, like we were talking, right? New York,
Right.
Las Vegas, and Atlantic City,
Correct.
and now we don't see so much. It's starting to go over in Riyadh and everything, but really great to have you here today. And I know you're involved still in the sport. You've done your own shows,
Yes.
not only boxing but MMA and everything.
That's correct.
What was the start for you for boxing? Was it something
Well, I
that
originally
just
started with, I'm from the town of Marlboro, Ulster County, New York, and Tony Marchese was a boxer. He was 3-time Golden Gloves champion. And when I was 9 years old, he started a boxing school, and I wanted to learn how to box, and he taught me. Then the next thing, it evolved into Floyd Patterson used to work out in the town of Marlboro with his brothers. And I was about 11 years old then. We used to skip school to watch Floyd Patterson work out because he was a very
Right.
famous guy.
yeah?
He worked at he boxed at the San Tree Lodge. So I got to know him. And then it's funny, fast forward in life, I ended up being executive commissioner at the New York State Athletic Commission, and he was the commissioner some years later. So I started out with him. I ended up with him for a period of time, which was really a
And
wonderful opportunity.
their gym is still standing in Hudson Valley. Floyd Patterson is still
Oh, yes, it is.
still a very prominent gym. A lot of good
Yes.
fighters up there. I know Tracy Patterson's involved in
Yes.
it, and you know, Anthony Bongiorni up there. They run a great program.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of boxing history right there.
Yeah, we work a lot with those guys. What the kids don't understand is when you start young, this is non-professional. They want to become boxers. We have certain criteria. They have to go to school. They have to, they get a check mark. They have to do their homework, check mark. They have to go to practice, check mark. 10 o'clock at night, they're tired. They want to go to sleep. They don't have time to gangbang and everything. And it keeps a lot of kids alive, and that's why their parents like that. So they don't have time to get in trouble. That idle hands,
Yeah.
make devils do. And so we like that program a lot for the young ones.
And you know something about the programs, right? Boxing. It's a tough sport, right? We know that, and you know a lot of people look at it as, oh, I don't want my son or daughter involved in that type of a program. You know, it's violent. But it's not. You know, you're teaching young kids discipline, accountability, responsibility. Because like you said, you know, you boxed, you trained, you've been around fighters. You know it's hard to train at,
Very hard.
and whether you're going to be a fighter or not. Even if you're going through a good program with good trainers, they're going to push you.
For sure. Well, we had one guy that I dealt with afterwards, Patrick Highland. He was a European world champion. I fought him and his two brothers. First time 3 brothers on the same fight card, and we fought at resorts in Atlantic City. We sold the place out. He ended up being 29-0. I got him when he was 23-0, 29-0. And we fought at Vegas. We fought against Javier Fortuna. And we lost on points. I thought we won, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But we lost. But it was fun just to be involved in that whole system. And when he was younger, that's all they used to do. They didn't have any money. He was in Ireland. They were very poor. They used to fight with their friends every day just to fight. And then after school, hey, can you come out and play? But that's what they knew. They didn't know anything else. They knew how to fight. And he was excellent. He trained hard, and his father was his coach. And again, I was very favorable for me to have 3 brothers on one fight card. I don't know if that was ever done before.
Maybe with the Spinks brothers at some time
Maybe,
early
yeah.
in their career.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, you know
And this
what I
is
mean?
all pro fights. Two
Yeah.
of the three won, and one guy lost, and
It's
he
not-
really did lose. It wasn't close either,
Yeah.
but he didn't really train it hard enough.
So, what was the evolution from being a young man into boxing? How did you really dive deep in it? Did you continue to fight, or what was
No,
the?
the only fighting I did was in high school and then in college at the Merchant Marine Academy.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to get accepted there. And then after that, I was just out in the world, and I got to know Governor Pataki. I was on his what they call 911 team. He offered me a position to run the DEC in Southern New York. I didn't want that because there's not enough action for me. I'm a sports guy.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity came up to work with Floyd Patterson as deputy director of the New York State Athletic Commission to run all events in New York, and I jumped at the opportunity, and I'm so happy I had that opportunity to do that. It was very fulfilling in my life. I met a lot of wonderful people, and there's nothing like, for me anyway, being Madison Square Garden, 26,000 people, everybody rooting for their favorite fan and their favorite boxer, and fans going crazy. I was just so blessed to have had that opportunity, and I thank God all the time for that opportunity. A lot of great people involved in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, boxing is, it seems like a big world, but it's a small world, and the relationships you meet are, like you, I've met some great people through boxing, and so much diversification of the individuals. So, kind of walk me through what was your role in this, and tell us what you handled events. What did that pertain to? What,
Well, to make sure that everybody had all their testing done. There's a whole execution of events that have to take place, like hepatitis B screenings, hepatitis C, B, AIDS testing, having been involved in a certain sanctioning body, having been signed up for it. And then from there, picking out the judges, the referees, and I had to sign off on all of that. Make sure the location was set up right, make sure security was all set. And what would happen is there'd be a fight at Madison Square Garden, and after each round, scorecards would be picked up from the judges and handed to me. Everybody thought they knew who was winning a fight, but I was the only guy in the world who knew who was winning because I had the scorecards. And I would write everything up for Michael Buffer, who would make the final announcement. I had security around me, and it was set up at the Garden that the camera was always on me, just so nobody could try to look over my shoulders to try to see who was winning, because Vegas is betting each round.
Right.
Who's winning and who's losing. Everybody thinks they know, but I knew because I was in that position. So I oversaw all fights from the beginning to the end, approvals, making sure all medicals were in position. The doctors were ringside. Everybody had all their papers in order for fighting, and that the judges were up and current and had attended all the classes they needed to attend, and the referees. So just to make sure it was a smooth show and it was done right.
I mean, and at that time, a couple of things, right? So first of all, New York's doing a lot of shows. It's just not the Garden at that time.
Right.
Because you had a lot of small club shows. You had the
Yes,
Bella,
that's correct.
Joe DeGuardia doing shows. You had some shows out in Long Island.
Yes.
Sal Musumeci, I believe, was doing shows out
there.
there.
He did a lot of shows.
So, you got a lot going on at that time, right? And that's a lot to manage. Like, people don't realize the professionalism of what it takes to go into an event, not only for the fighter to get prepared, but what it takes to put that event on. That, fighters have to be licensed, they have to be medical, and, doctors at the ring, judges, all the officials, proper officials to make the show go properly. Now, how much input did you have for these events? Did you have input as far as, hey, we should have these referees or these judges, or how did that go about?
Yeah, we checked everybody's background, say like on referees, to make sure that they weren't sanctioned, make sure that they were sanctioned properly. Some of them would get in trouble and they were put on standby. They couldn't really, fight a fight, say out in Vegas, and they were coming to New York to fight. We checked that out. I had people in place check out all the medicals, make sure they were right. They would report back to me that the medicals were all okay. Or somebody was missing a hepatitis B screening. And we had to make sure we got a hold of their managers to make sure those things were done before they could fight. I was very law and order. It had to be the right thing to do. and make sure nobody had AIDS or anything like that, or
Well, that was a big thing at the time now because we hadn't seen that. All right, hepatitis A and B always being there, right?
right.
But now AIDS comes into play. That's a whole nother
You had to be
test.
careful. Two guys could be fighting, and if they weren't screened for AIDS and they had it, and sweat came off from somebody and went into somebody's eyeball, they could contract it. So we had to be very, very careful that
Or even
nobody,
a cut. If somebody cut.
or even cut, right, as a cut man.
And or a fighter rubs up onto somebody with a cut, or a cut man's working on a cut, you're
Yeah.
exposed at that point there. You see a lot of stuff in boxing, and there are a lot of characters. And how do you weed through that as an inspector? Because boxing it's not the NFL, it's not the NBA, it's not Major League Baseball, where there's a lot of different people involved in boxing, and
Yeah.
where stuff can get overlooked or passed by. New York always had the reputation of being a very, very good commission, a very,
Yes.
protective, by the book commission. We're not going to let certain fights happen. Was that the attitude of your team? that you were
Yes.
leaving?
One of the guys that really worked out exceptionally well was Ralph Petrillo. Do you know him?
Yeah, I remember Ralph.
And he was director of boxing, and he worked under me, and we made sure that the screenings were all done properly. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. The doctors had to have all their paperwork in regard to the execution of a fight. Did everybody have all the proper tests? Let me see the test that you had. Is there any question? Did you have to go back for another referral, or could you just fight based upon the information that we had? There was a whole team in place to make sure it was the safest possible place to fight was at Madison Square Garden or any place in New York. We fought in Buffalo. We fought all over the place.
You
And,
guys handled the whole state, not just
Oh, yeah.
Buffalo at the time. You were fighting in Buffalo, Syracuse,
all
upstate
over.
New York.
Yeah.
Hudson
Fort Drum.
Valley. Anywhere where they can put a venue. Now, were you in charge of the actual ring inspectors also?
Yes.
So, kind of talk me through how does somebody become an inspector, or what's their criteria, and then what's their responsibility? I mean, we know because we've been around the fight world, but what basically, you go to a fight in New York and we see these people around, they're in the jackets in Vegas and they're all over the place.
Right.
What is their role for boxing?
We'd have classes that I would teach, and a couple other people, of what the role is supposed to be as an inspector, or the wrapping of hands. Say you have to use, wrapping of hands, like 12 feet of gauze, 6 feet of tape. Everything was laid out, and they would come in with an inspector that was already seasoned and watch them for at least 6 months to make sure they knew exactly what to do.
So they would shadow.
They would shadow. So you see two inspectors in one corner sometimes.
Right.
Because the one guy was shadowing the one that had been there originally. So we took it very seriously because, you know what? People sometimes die in the ring. We had one like on the Intrepid. We had a fight. Beethoven, Scotland.
I remember that fight on the Intrepid.
Right. And so there was a big investigation, and there was another fight that I was in charge of. So right before that fight, I checked out the whole Intrepid, which is a World War II aircraft carrier.
Right, which is
and the
Hudson
elevator
River.
was kind of tiny. In Beethoven, Scotland, when he went down, the reporters like the Daily News and the Post and all these Daily Mirror all tried to get into the elevator, and the elevator wouldn't go because these ships were built in the late 30s.
Yeah,
and
World War II. Yeah, World War One. Yeah.
Right? And the elevator wouldn't move, and that caused about a 15-minute delay of getting Beethoven, Scotland to the hospital or not. Subsequently, unfortunately, he died 6 days later of a blood clot. The commission got sued because they're saying that delay. Now, my records at that time became very important because I measured up the distance from where the ring was set up on the Intrepid flight deck to where the elevator was, how many steps it took to get there, how long it took the elevator to get from there to ground level to get onto the West Side Highway. I had everything laid out. And that's what helped the commission during the lawsuit because we did everything like that we were supposed to do. No steps. Every step that needed to be taken was taken. We didn't leave anything out. And that became important. It was a $50 million lawsuit, death suit.
Right.
So I took for me, I took my job very seriously. I wanted to represent, like, this is my family. If my family was fighting, did I turn every stone over and make sure things were done the right way? I really put my heart and soul into it because I didn't want to see anybody get hurt where they didn't need to get hurt. And as you know, it's a sweet science, but it's a tough sport, man. You're getting banged around, your brain's going,
Yeah. I mean, you talk about, we don't like to talk about it, right? The violence of the sport and the fact that people can get hurt, people can die. We've heard the stories of fighters dying. What do you think you see now? It's hard to foresee if someone has a blood clot or there's damage to their brain prior to the fight that might be aggravated or, through a fight and everything
Right.
else. What are the precautions that are going on in a fight? Because we'll see fights that might get stopped that the fan might think it's too quick. Why did they stop that fight? What is the reason? Or we'll see, some corners might stop the fight quick. What are the precautions you see ringside and that you talk about with the inspectors and referees that are going on
Right.
in the
Well,
sport?
obviously the referee is the most important person there. He's visually right next, physically and visually right next to the two fighters.
Now, do you guys actually have an input with him prior to the fight as far as like if you're matching, two big banger heavyweight fighters, right? They're banging, they throw big punches, they're
Right.
are you guys talking to the referees saying, "Look, we need to keep an eye on this fight"?
Prior
Or
to the fight,
prior to the fight, is that
you're
a
right on the money.
conversation?
Prior to the fight, that's the conversation.
That's a
Watch
conversation,
their eyes. If their eyes are rolling,
right?
are starting to go back a little bit, rolling in their head.
And obviously, they're like, look, you seem like a very detailed oriented individual. For you to measure out ring and timing and everything out, you must know about the two fighters or whoever's on that card that's matched with each other.
Yeah.
So you're already going to be privy to like if one guy was injured, this guy's sustainable to cuts or headbutts or injuries,
Right.
to really. Is that becoming more in boxing now, the safety aspect
I
of the
think so
sport?
because the lawsuits are so magnanimous, they're so big. Hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases and stuff like that if somebody gets hurt.
Mm.
But we would have meetings prior to the fight. If somebody was knocked out in previous fights, they have to have an MRI. They can't fight for 6 months. It depends, who they're fighting, what weight class. Doctors report. They have to have 2 doctor reports from 2 different doctors that they're okay to fight. So you don't want anybody to die. Obviously nobody
Mm.
wants that to happen. But we take all those precautions are always taken to make sure the fights were clean and everybody was in the best shape that they can be in. And how do we know? Well, we have doctors that they're involved in this trade of boxing and also well-known physicians, and they know what to look for, and they write the report that the guy can fight after having experienced certain injuries in previous fights. And the MRIs are there to prove that they're okay, that they don't have a brain bleed or a blood
So
clot.
you have the paper trail to kind of just go.
100%.
So let me put you on the spot here a little bit, and I don't want to put you on a real spot, so we don't have to go through it. Was there ever a fight that you could remember that you might have said to an inspector or maybe spoke to a ref in between and said, "Look, we really need to maybe consider stopping this fight," or do you have that power to do that?
Yeah. One of the examples would be Beethoven, Scotland. It was an 8-round fight. 6 rounds, he wasn't doing well, and on the 6th round, his arm started to drop down, which means he's getting tired and tired.
Right.
So I went over, and I wasn't really supposed to do this, but I went and talked to 3 judges, said, "Look, really keep your eye on this here," and to the doctor. The doctor is the only guy that can stop the fight. I said, if you see he's dropping his arms even more, call a fight. I don't want anybody to get hurt. It's a true story. Maybe I shouldn't be telling this, but this is exactly what happened, and I'm proud of what I did. 7th round, he wins the round. He comes back. 8th round, 10 seconds into the 8th round, he's getting pummeled, and I kicked the doctor next to me.
He nudged him.
Nudged him because I said something's going to happen to this guy. He can't defend himself anymore. But we let him go because the 7th round, he really came back strong. He won that round. And that happens in a lot of fights. Sometimes
Yeah,
boxers
you'll see a burst.
There's a burst, right?
Maybe the other fighter took a little bit off that round. He's coasting.
So they stopped the fight, and it turned out that he ended up with a blood bleed in his brain. And the unfortunate part, his wife and his 3 kids were there. And that was on the Intrepid. Now, trying to get him off the Intrepid with the elevator, going back to the previous story I said, became an issue with the state, the New York State Athletic Commission, blah, blah, blah. But all our ducks were in a row. And the state had to pay some money to the family, but not all those millions of dollars because because of the press getting it on there, and the elevator wouldn't move. And I was so exacerbated that if I could have punched somebody out that night, I would have. Because here's a man that's in a stretcher, and he's out. He's bleeding from the mouth. He's out. Take him to the hospital, and 6 days later, unfortunately, the man passed away. And he was one of the nicest people, regardless of whether he was nice or not. It should not have happened, and it did happen. And maybe that 15 minutes might have made a difference. I don't know.
Right.
To get him to the hospital. But it still stays with me. And even as much as I did in the beginning to make sure everything would work properly, the steps, but when the people got on and pressed, we wouldn't move the elevator. And that could have been a reason why maybe he died. So I still carry that with me, but I couldn't prevent it.
Right.
But whatever. It's a tough business.
There's, look, in the heat of the battle, you got fights going on, especially if they're big fights with a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. That fight's moving quick, and look, we know because we worked fights. You've been around the game, you're around the ring. The fight is different when you're that close. When people watching the fight at TV, and it's easier now because, right, the TVs are better, right? So you can see everything, hear everything.
See the perspiration coming off.
Yeah, right. Face. It's better to watch it on TV sometimes, right? But when you're ringside and you hear what's really happening verbal, you hear when a guy gets punched and, maybe hurts a fighter or a headbutt or cuts or, you hear some of the conversations and the body language. See, I think what some of the fans don't realize is like what you're talking about when a fighter starts to get tired, you have to look for the telltale signs. You have to look for the signs that if he gets hurt with a punch, whether it's a punch to the head, a body shot, if he gets dropped, you got to look for the signs to say, because a fighter's going to fight. You've probably heard it. A fighter's going to go out there. You got to be the corner and take the fighter's decision out of his hands because he's going to go fighting to the end. He's not. Most fighters that I know are going to fight no matter what. Even you're going to have to throw the towel for him and stop him and save him because he's not going to save himself, right? So, this going on, so fight night, how many inspectors are actually working fights?
We usually have around 8 there. Depends how many are in the fight card. We usually have around 8 inspectors, 2 in each corner, and they rotate out so they get rested a little bit.
Right.
And then after it depends if the championship fights, they got to stay right with the fighter, and they secure the boxing gloves and take it off right in the ring to make sure that nobody put any type of chemicals, if it's a championship fight, on there that would make somebody's eye tear, like Avitine. You can put that on the outside of the glove and make sure eye tear a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been done in the past, so we want those gloves go to the state trooper lab. You send the state troopers lab up in Albany to be examined for any chemicals on that glove that shouldn't be there. But I got to tell you, and I'm saying this most sincerely out of my heart, it's really nice speaking to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about. You really understand the game. Most people don't. They think they know about boxing. They have no clue what it's about. Like what you said, when you're right there and you see a guy getting hit, you see the sweat flying off and his head going back or his cheek bubbling out because he got hit so hard. You got to really know. People, this is not a game. This is the real. This is life.
And you know what? You got to know. See, the other thing is that people don't realize is most trainers are working with their fighter for long term. So you know them, right? You're in the gym with them. You kind of pick up how they are. So there is a sense of attachment. We have fighters jumping around today, but you know what? For me, I work with fighters that I know. All right. My thing is like you. I want to go home at the end of the day, put my head down on a pillow, know I made the right decision, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously safety. Look, I pulled a kid out of a title fight, 5 days before the fight. And it was a very, very hard conversation with a kid because I said to him, he had just had a baby. He was a kid that I worked with as an amateur. Great kid, great fighter, heart of a lion, right? He needed the money, but he also had a shot. It was a small belt. It wasn't a big title fight. It wasn't a WBC or a WBA. It was a small interim belt. And he wasn't doing well. He wasn't performing well in the gym. Amateurs were beating him. And I don't mean beating him, but just like he wasn't reacting, and he was fighting a tough kid from Philadelphia. It was a tough fight. And I ended up calling the promoter, and he mother effed me up and down and saying, you better send a letter. I had a doctor write a letter saying, he was injured during camp. But it was a hard conversation. And the kid came back. He was mad at first, right? Because, he's losing a payday, right? And he wanted to fight. And about a week later, we had a conversation, and he was like, listen, that was the right decision. I wasn't mentally ready to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But for me...
Most people are not like you, though.
You know what?
You have a heart.
Here's the deal.
You know the sport.
Here's the deal, Michael, right? What can you do in boxing? You've been around it, right? You've seen every level of events, from guys that they pulled off the street the night before the fight,
yes,
to guys that had 3-month training camps, 4-month training camps fighting for titles, right?
Yeah.
We see all the levels. One thing is constant in boxing, and this is what I tell people. The only thing that we can control in boxing, all right, as coaches, is making sure our fighters are in shape. It's the only thing I can control. Knowing that you're going into the fight, that I prepared you, right? We had enough work. You're physically and mentally in shape walking into that fight. We have control over that. What happens in that fight, we have no control. Right? You win fights you're supposed to lose. You lose fights you're supposed to win. It happens. That's the name of the game. But if you're in shape, physically and mentally, we got a shot. But back to this, like the fan sees fights getting stopped, whether it be by the doctor, the corner, the referee. Let's talk about the referee's role. Why does a referee stop the fight? And is some of the referees, without naming anybody, do you think they stop fights prematurely, or it's just they know that fight should be stopped?
I think in some cases it is premature based upon fights that went too long and somebody got severely injured, with a brain injury or possibly, unfortunately, passed away.
Right.
So some will stop it a little bit earlier. But I'd rather be a little bit earlier than somebody dying. If they really truly thought that the guy during the fight, they're looking at his eyes. His eyes are starting to roll. His hands are dropping down. He can't protect himself anymore. He's getting hit. He's trying to come in, but he's not thinking. He's not ducking. He's not moving back and forth. He's out of sync. And these guys that are referees started in the amateurs and say junior Olympics, regular boxing clubs, and they have to go through a whole series of tests for the New York State Athletic Commission to make sure that they're an opportune mentally and physically to do a fight. You can't just send anybody in there. You have to know the tells, what they call the tells, of somebody that can no longer defend himself. So by and large, high 90 percentile of these refs really know what they're doing. You might get somebody that went a little bit too far thinking that the guy was okay, or listen to the corner, he's okay, he's just a little bit tired, he'll be fine next round. Or that next round, something may happen where that guy could be injured for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
It's a hard decision,
So you made a good point there, right? A lot of people don't think like this, but this goes back again by being at the fights, right? Certain corners with guys that have been around, there have been experienced trainers,
Right.
They got relationships in the sport of boxing, so maybe a ref might say, look, hey, he's good, and they let him go another round. We don't hear that aspect of it. We hear when the refs are stopping a fight. The question that comes into play where I think the fan sees the fight as being closer than what it is, and then all of a sudden the ref calls off the fight because one of the fighters gets caught up in a flurry, takes too many shots, not necessarily a knockdown. What are your thoughts on that? Is that referee actually engaged, knowing what's going on in this fight, who's winning this fight?
Yes, because he's standing like a foot or two away from the guy's face, or maybe within 5 feet. People that are in the stands could be 50, 75, 100 feet away. They They can't see the tells that the
Well,
guy,
they can't
like you
hear
and
it.
I
They
can look
can't
at you
hear
right
that.
now. I can see your eyes. I can see what's
Yeah.
going on. A guy 100 feet from now doesn't see the same expression of how your eyes look as I do right now.
Right.
The intensity of asking questions and trying to promote, fighting and how we're all involved in this game and stuff like that. So people will say things in the audience. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're there. Give me another beer. Give me another 3 beers. And they're with their loved ones and they're bullshitting and doing whatever they're doing. This is a life safety event. I mean, somebody could die there. This is not a game. And you got to have people really close. Like the ref is right there. He's looking at the
And
person.
he hears it.
He hears it.
You know what it's like when a guy hits somebody flush.
Oh.
You hear that sound. And if they're big guys with 8-ounce or 10-ounce gloves, like that's another thing that people don't realize, right?
Yeah.
You got in the heavyweight division, they're fighting with 8-ounce gloves.
Right.
Right? Those are 200-pound men with wrapped bricks on their hands. And when I say bricks, I don't mean bricks intentionally to hurt. A good hand wrapper is going to make sure that guy's hand is like a brick. It's wrapped, it's tight, it fits in that glove snug. He's dangerous.
It's like Jimmy Glenn. Jimmy Glenn was a good rapper. Did you know Jimmy Glenn?
I did, and I met his son. I met his son
Good
at
guy.
Nationals. I did not know Jimmy. I knew of him. I never met him. Yeah, he still has the bar down there in Manhattan.
He does. Yeah, it's still there. Actually, they tripled the rent down there. They want to get rid of it. I just read it in the newspaper.
Yeah, I read that. I met his son manages some fighters. I had met him a couple of years ago in Shreveport.
Okay.
Yeah, really nice family. But Jimmy's got some legendary history in the boxing world. And actually, if you're in New York City and you want to really kind of go to a boxing type establishment, his bar is just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, it's narrow, but all the photographs, it's like a museum.
Yeah, it is. And and after the big fights, there's always people in there and everything else. But talk to me about the doctor's role. Now, a doctor could come up and he could pretty much just wave a fight off. He don't need any authorization.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is absolutely 100% correct.
Now, your opinion. You've seen fights going on. Doctors go up there. What are they looking for? And, they can really change the outcome of a big fight with one like that.
Absolutely. Well, they're checking the pupils. Sometimes the pupils will get a little bit wider if there's issues with the brain starting to develop and stuff like that. They'll talk to the fighter. They'll see if he enunciates his words properly, if he's looking right into the eyes of the doctor, how his breathing is. They can tell. He has his hand checking his pulse and his pulse rate because some of them go so high. Like sometimes, like at my events, when I have my own company events and stuff like that, right before a fight, a kid gets so nervous, his pulse could go up to like 170, 180 beats a minute. You don't want him in he's so nervous, so we make him go outside or go someplace quiet and just walk around and get his heart rate down before he goes into the ring. If it doesn't come down, he doesn't fight. Well, my whole family's here. I don't care who's here. I'm not going to jeopardize your life. You may not understand it. You're going to thank me later because you're not going to be laying in a coffin with your family crying around you.
Right.
Not on my watch.
Your heart exploding, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what happens sometimes.
Well, now even more prevalent because these guys are, there's energy drinks. They're all trying to make, to get a little bit of edge.
Everybody's got an opinion. Like people that, if I go to a local deli about them fighting, well, I could do this and the guy should have. Let me tell you something. We've all been in fights when we were younger, school fights, whatever. After a minute, you can't even pick up your arms.
Well, that's,
imagine going 12 rounds.
You were talking about that a second ago, right? We were talking about the fans. They're sitting there having a beer, a hot dog with their friends.
Right.
Boxing is the only sport, right? You go to an event, I sit in the stands, right? And people who don't know me, I don't wear a shirt saying I'm a trainer. I don't. Right. I'll go and I'll sit, right? And I'll hear people talking about boxing. Oh, he's no good. He's a bum. He should do this. He should do that. And, we've been around fights. So I'm watching the fight and I'm listening a little bit. And I'm watching the fight and I'm listening. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, is he watching? Does he know what he's talking? Like, I don't want to say nothing. That's not my style. But I think boxing fans are like that. You have the hardcore boxing fans who know the sport. Like, you'll sit with them and they'll know
They'll know.
stuff of what's going on, the training, what he's doing, his placement of his feet, how blah blah blah, all his style, what. And then you'll have guys just like, there is a technique to the sport. It's just not two guys.
They don't understand it. A lot of these people are ignorant. Like I said, look, you play baseball, you play basketball, you play golf. You don't play boxing. It's the real deal. Your life is on the line.
We don't.
It's not a play game. This is the real deal.
We have the
physical.
banner in the gym. We don't play boxing. It's hanging in our gym.
Okay. All
We
right.
don't play boxing. But you're right. So let's think like this, right? Baseball, right? We have minor leagues. People go to the minor leagues, right? They don't make fun of the guy in the minor leagues because he's an A ball or double A or triple A, right? You go to a fight, the guy who fights the 4-round fight or the 6-round fight, maybe the 8-round fight, these guys are ripping up in the stands.
Yeah.
Oh, he's this. But they don't understand what that person, because boxing is so many layers, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand what that person had to go to get in that ring, right? There's so many layers. One, he might be a prospect. He might be a high-level amateur who's going to be going for, but he starts at the same place, right? The guy he's fighting might be fighting to put food on his table. It's not his fault he's not a prospect or he's not as talented, right? Not everybody was fucking Nolan Ryan or Tom Seaver, right? So there's so many layers to this sport, but yet that other guy's getting in the ring. He's going to fight a high-level fighter,
Yeah.
and he's going to give it his best shot. He's not going in there, and as well as I do in the beginning aspects of the sport, it's not a lot of money.
No.
These guys aren't making a lot of money. You see the checks. You see the checks, and they sign them off.
That's right. Well, and for a lot of these younger guys, it's an event that maybe is the biggest thing they're ever going to achieve in their life. Their family, their friends are there. They're proud of them. They work hard. They want to be somebody that's striving. They have regular jobs. It isn't like when I have my champions, that's all I did is train. They trained. We had nutritionists for them, everything laid out the guys that I actually, fought under Pascal boxing, the pros. These guys don't have that. They have regular warehouse jobs. They're doing this. They got family problems. They're breaking up with their wives.
Listen, I'm working
children.
I'm working with a fighter right now, right? Amon Lee, right? His father's the head coach, Joshua Lee, comes out of a family of boxing. You might even know his grandfathers. They worked at a Custom Autos gym. He's 14-0-1, right? Went to the quarterfinals in Riyadh, WBC tournament. Had a draw, razor sharp draw, right? Great kid, right? Ranked fighter, right? Big, promising career still ahead of him. Works full-time as a mechanic.
There you go.
Trains, comes to the gym, does his work. I say it all the time. Win 20 games as a major league pitcher. Win 20 games.
Yeah.
Win 10, win 15. And you don't even have to win 20 because they don't pitch them 20 anymore.
Right.
Win 10 or 15, right?
Yeah.
They're emptying the checkbook for you, right? Win 10 in boxing, you can't make a living. Win 15 in boxing,
Excellent.
you might
Excellent
have
point.
20 wins in boxing, and there have been fighters through history and fighters still now who are 20-win fighters that aren't making a full-time living, that are still chasing the dream to be a champion or to get the big payday.
Yep.
You
got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of wherewithal to do that, that's for sure.
It does. But we'll talk a couple of things. I want to ask you about a couple of legendary fights. But before that, I want to ask you, tell me, you hear stories, right? You hear stories. Guys wrapping hands, doing things. Guys, putting stuff in fighters' eyes, on the gloves. What are some of the craziest things you've seen as an inspector? Prior fight, backroom stuff, where maybe, somebody was doing something that they shouldn't have been doing.
Well, sometimes they like to have their girlfriends or wives in there. We don't allow that. Sometimes guys will just sleep on the bench, lay down and sleep. Other guys will say, "I'll bring in my entourage, the championship fight, and to say in Madison Square Garden, I have 10 guys coming in." No, you're not. You're only going to have 4. And you're going to have 10. Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. I'll cancel a fight. I have the ability to do that. You're allowed 4 guys in there with you. And we're not in a championship fight. not so these other guys can see themselves on TV. Then they get into an argument. I said, okay, then I'm not going to name any boxers because I don't want anybody any problem.
Yeah.
You're not going to fight. It's up to you. It's your money. It's not my money. You don't want to abide by the rules and regulations. You don't fight. You know what? I have the ability to call that fight. It's up to you. You want to play? We'll play. I'll work with you, but not to that extent. So you run into different things like that, or a guy's playing music too loud. He's bothering the other guys with his music. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 boxers in one room.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to stop. Tell him to go F himself. I'm up turning my music down. You know, we always have security. We have policemen too there just in case. And some guys look at somebody, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm a boxer. Well, you know what? I'm the commissioner. So there.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want to do. You want to fight? You don't want to fight? So I don't care. It's not my money. It's your money.
I'm getting paid anyway. I'm here anyway.
And it takes a lot. I'm very laid back. I try to be very kind, gentle type of guy. But it gets to a point you cross the line, then we got to rock and roll. And I'll rock and roll with anybody.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Because you're showing me a lot of disrespect, and nobody disrespects me. I'm not nobody. I'm a regular guy, but we got to play by the rules. I don't want this is the way it is.
I'm giving respect. I expect respect back.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the way I kind of. But anything besides that, boxing. The back room's crazy. I was at a fight in Chicago one time, right? IBF championship fight, and a fight breaks out in the locker room. The fight in the locker room was probably better than most of the fights at the. It was crazy, and we were trying to wrap hands, and we were the main event, and so it kind of just. But it was not. The back room is kind of nutty. You got a lot of people. You got different characters with the fighter, whether there's their trainers, their seconds, or whoever they're bringing in. If they send their other team over to watch the hand wrap, there's always, could be an issue. There's always, you're in tight quarters with a lot of people, and shit could pop off fast.
Well, the only problems I really remember like that is like if we have a championship fight, the manager of the one fighter will come into the room when the other fighter's being wrapped and watch. And sometimes it could be an argument about, you're putting too much tape on there, that type of stuff. But in each room, we always had, for major fights, 2 inspectors, and they would stop right down. And then they would say, unless you want me to call the commissioner in, and the commissioner comes in, there's going to be a big problem. You got a lot of money at stake. You don't want to ruin that. That would calm it down. But we never had a fight in the locker room that I'm aware of. At least maybe there was, but I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it happened, but I wasn't aware.
Ever hear of anything underhanded in the hand wraps, or anybody trying to have any inspector pick something off and something that might have been questionable?
Piece of metal under the gauze.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not gonna name any names.
No, don't name names.
That happened twice. It was on left, like 12-foot gauze in the tape, and they would put like a piece of metal right there. So in that glove, when you got hit, it stung a little bit more than it should have stung. That happened twice.
Wow.
Yeah, and then one of the gloves had like this Aventine on it, and when you get it in your eyes, it burns. And when the gloves, it was a championship fight, when they went up to Albany, the state trooper's laboratory, they discovered that on there, and then all hell broke loose at that point in time. But I don't want to mention any names.
No.
There's a lawsuit.
We don't want to. We don't want to do. I know. Years ago, we heard the stories of people putting stuff on gloves. They would rub it in the fighter's eye.
You can't see.
You can't. You blind them.
Everything's blurry. Like sometimes double vision.
Yeah.
And one guy got hurt really bad. He was put in the hospital for a couple of months because of that. Because he couldn't see, and he turned his head.
From working with the fighter, right?
Yeah.
I can't fathom putting something in someone's hands. Like, that's just malicious at any level. It's like, I get the advantage part of it, but what are you thinking about? Like, you're really going to hurt somebody.
It's like attempted murder or something.
Like what? You know what I mean? Like, are you not?
Like, who does that?
Are you not thinking? And I know today also, like, the water, the clear bottles. Now, I remember years ago you were able to have, different bottles in the water. Now I think it's just clear, and then most commissions, you could only use their water. You can't have any squeeze containers or any of those. Because I remember, I think it was Panama Lewis in the Aaron Pryor fight had the old taped up bottle of water, which supposedly was tainted
Yeah.
when Pryor fought Arguello and beat the heck out of him. And that fight was on CBS. I remember watching that fight as a kid. And they taped up, it was like an old, it looked like a liquor bottle almost, and it was water. But supposedly
I remember hearing about that.
it was tainted there. But how many fights do you think you worked over the years?
Oh, a lot. I don't even know. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
Is there one that stands out?
One of the ones is when we talked about Vogelada.
Tell us.
Because I jumped in the ring.
Tell me your aspect. Then I'm going to add to that.
All right, Vogelada fight. We could see things were starting to go south. Low blows twice, low blow third, low blow fourth time. Bo goes down. Bo's corner comes into the main ring, and I said, maybe this is not good. Something's going to happen bad. So I come in. It's actually one of the top 25 scenes in boxing. I jump over the ropes. I grab Galata, and I hold him. And I said, Galata, I said, it's Pascal. Don't you move. Because if he ever turned around and hit me, he would knock me out 1, 2, 3. But he'd remember me. I said, you're going to lose everything. Don't do anything. That riot went on for over a half hour. New York City police come in.
I remember chairs getting thrown into the ring. That was a crazy scene.
You know what was interesting? My son was there, one of my sons. And when I first got on the apron, before I jumped in, 2 guys tried to hit me from behind. My son, who was 12 at the time, grabbed him by the belt loops and pulled him backwards.
There you go.
Then I jumped over there. I held him. It was about 25 minutes later, police came in, about 70 of them in a V with billy clubs, and they're just hitting everybody, banging them up. This went on for a long time until police finally got everything quelled down. They just stopped. Lou Duva got hurt. They carried him out in a stretcher. They almost dropped him. Next thing I know, Giuliani's there. I'm in a meeting with Giuliani, trying to figure out what happened. Now it's about 1:45 in the morning. I get a ride. I needed a drink. It was just a hell of a night. So I stopped at this bar. I don't remember the name of it. And I'm there, and I look down the end of the bar. There's nobody there, but there's a guy with a big fedora on and a cigar. Bert Sugar.
Bert Sugar.
He was at the fight.
Yeah.
He said to me, son, because I was younger then, you had a hell of a night tonight, didn't you? I said, yeah, he bought me a drink. And I needed that drink at that time. But he was a cool dude. He was at all the fights. He
the legendary Bert Sugar. I never met him.
He had the fedora on, like a big fedora.
Yeah.
The cigar wasn't lit.
No, I never lit the cigar.
It was just in his mouth.
Legendary writer.
He was at the end of the bar. Nobody was in the bar. That was the hell of a night for me. I remember that fight like it was yesterday.
Now, was Al Cerdo Galata's trainer at that time?
No, it was he was involved, but it was what's his name? I just forgot his name.
Yeah, I know.
Rock Newman was with Bo.
Oh, okay.
Rock Newman.
So Lou Duva.
I'm sorry, Lou Duva. Rock Newman had an involvement with him, and Rock Newman they lost. We took out $200. I wrote it down, $250,000 away from the purse.
From both of them.
From both of them.
Split it.
They split it.
Yeah.
I just have to write that down in case it came up. I couldn't remember it for a second, but that was a hell of a night. That was. My heart had to be going 175 beats a minute then because it was scary actually. Nobody can.
Bo was a big guy. I mean,
he was huge,
and he could punch. He was
His back was like this. I mean, he was big. Holy mackerel.
I mean, that could have got out of hand, pretty quick.
A lot of people, probably over 50 people went to the hospital and got hurt.
It could have been worse than that.
Thank God the police came in, but I thought they would be there earlier. But they had to amass so many police. There's always a big police presence outside the guard. But there had to be at least 70, 75 police that came in a V swinging their clubs.
So do you think that fight was a precedent to what's going on now when we have security at these fights?
Yeah, I think so. It had to be. It had an impact.
Now, after that fight, what changed up from the commissioner's end as far as running security and fight protocol now after seeing that.
Well, they screened a lot of people coming in because some people had knives on them too.
Right.
Some people got cut up. So I think from that end of it, they were supposed to be checking for that, but I think they wanded people either with stronger wands or better means of detection.
Right.
So that was that. It's just hard. It's hard to say. I mean, other than that, there wasn't really too much more than that because the crowds are the ones that went crazy. Fights kept breaking out. The guy who helped me too was George Foreman. He was there. And I was teasing him because I'm a big guy, and he had his suit company, George Foreman Suits. It says George Foreman in my suit too, and I showed him and he started laughing. And some guy tried to come up and hit him. He's, now, son, you don't want to do that, son. You do not want to do that, son. I was standing right next to him. And the guy looked at him. He realized it was George Foreman. He backed right up. The fights would break out, then he would stop. Then he would break out again, and he would stop. Then there was a lot of hoods there, too.
Yeah, you had a lot of
undesirables
people from both sides, and then
a lot of undesirables.
You had some of the crazy Polish community for Galata that ran pretty deep. You had a lot of mixed crowd there.
Duva said to Galata, I heard him the one time because I'm right at ringside. What are you doing? You know, you low blowed him twice. This is not going to go well. And low blowed him again. Then afterwards, I heard him say, he's a dumb Polak, you know. He went like that, which he shouldn't have said, you know, as they were carrying him out in a stretcher. They almost dropped him in a stretcher. Larry Mendelker, who was the executive New York State attorney, helped carry Duva out, and they were bringing him up the steps, and the stretcher went over. They almost dropped him out. Thank God he was strapped into the stretcher. Yeah. It was a crazy night. But at least I got to speak with Bert Sugar that night.
You got to meet Bert Sugar.
I mean, I've seen him but I never really got to talk to him.
Yeah, you got to talk to him a little bit.
I had a drink with him. It was fun.
Yeah, that's what makes boxing kind of, you never know who you're going to really, then you're next to Big George. Big George is in the ring.
Oh, yeah.
You know, throwing hands. What else? If you had to pick, right? That's a memorable crazy. But if you had to pick, what do you think the best fight you saw from a not a commissioner's standpoint, from a fan standpoint that you worked?
I used to like to watch Kenny Norton fight. Remember Kenny Norton?
Yeah.
He was always a good fight. I just liked his style, the way he crouched and everything, the way he got down. He was indomitable. He just kept coming and coming and coming. His fights are always memorable for me because I thought he was that good.
So, yeah, Kenny Norton, for a lot of people who don't know who Kenny Norton was, Kenny Norton beat Muhammad Ali, I believe it was 1973 or 74.
Yeah.
No, maybe it was a little later than that. It might have been 76, maybe, in Yankee Stadium.
It was in the 70s.
It was in the 70s. He broke Ali's jaw with a left hook.
He was like this. He was shaped.
If you remember in boxing, right?
Yeah.
Kenny Norton was chiseled like a bodybuilder. He did not have the boxing physique. He had cuts in his muscles. He was a big guy, threw a big left hook. I remember watching the fight as a kid. Crushed Ali. Crushed his jaw.
Yeah.
Fast track after that, Jerry Cooney crushes him in the first round and folds Kenny Norton in the corner.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt him, but he hit him with everything, and Norton was asleep in the corner when they.
He was a nice guy, Cooney. I got to know Cooney.
I met Jerry. Jerry.
He was always friendly.
I actually did a great doc with him down in Jersey, and he is. You know, we're New York guys. You know, Jerry grew up in the era, man. He was. You know, he was popular in New York with us, a young crowd. He was a young heavyweight coming up, a homegrown guy.
He was funny, too.
He was funny. He was out. He'd go out. He'd be out, you know, and, you know, he talked about that with me. But, I mean, such a knowledgeable guy about the sport.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
You know, a really, really knowledgeable guy. And you know what? He got out with all his faculties. You know, thank God, made a little bit of money where some of these guys have not walked away with anything to show for.
Well, one of these times I was down at a casino in New Jersey, and I was just going to go up the escalator, just get ready to step on it, and the guy comes down. He says, and yo, he goes, and he has his arms up like this here. And the girl, I was taking the girl out on a date, and she got real scared. It was Jerry Clooney.
Yeah.
Hey, come here, how you doing? You know?
Yeah.
He liked to fool around
Yeah,
like
he
that.
always likes to fool. He likes to.
What a nice human being.
Yeah.
Really,
Oh,
really.
no, I've had dinner with him a couple of times. In fact, we're hoping that he's going to be part of our show here in Danbury when we do
cool.
our amateur show. Trying to get him up here. I talk to him every now and then. A really, likes to kid around.
Lou Savarese was like that. Did you know Lou Savarese?
Yes, I'm going to tell you a story about Lou Savarese. Okay, so so like I told you guys outside playing baseball, right? I played baseball in college, right? So I'm at Westchester Community College, right? We're having tryouts in the fall, right? Who comes out for tryouts? Big, tall kid, Lou Savarese, right? His cousin played on our team. Lou played first base. He was big, as you know.
Yeah.
We knew he was boxing, but he wasn't boxing professional at the time. His amateur career was big. And he loved baseball, right? And long story short, he don't stay because I guess wherever he was fighting as an amateur at that time, that was the direction he was going. He wasn't a bad baseball player, right? So I see Lou a couple of years later, and we kind of stayed in contact here and there. We were up in one of the shows. It was a racetrack in upstate New York, a casino later on.
Monticello area?
No, past there. Further.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It was like in the middle of near Binghamton or somewhere.
Yeah.
It had It was like Yonkers Raceway. It had an outdoor track, and it had a casino, right? Lou Savarese is there. And I walk up to him. What are you doing, man? I go, can you still hit? Can you still throw? And he's looking at me, right? I go, don't you remember when you tried? Oh, man, I know his cousin. I mentioned it. So about a month ago, right, I reach out to him because I'm like, Lou, I want to get you on. He's in Houston, right? I want to get him on. He doesn't come back to New York too much, but I want to get him on this other format that I do, like an interview with him, because he fought everybody.
Oh yeah.
He was a tough, gritty fighter. He was a big, heavy-handed Foreman.
Yeah.
Sparred with everybody.
Nice guy.
Yeah. He's
his father-in-law is Ted Nugent.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because we went out, Brian Burke?
The name's familiar.
He used to fight. He was Tracy Patterson's best friend.
Did Burke fight Camacho?
No, he
that was Lou Burke.
That was Lou Burke, yeah. But Burke and Tracy Patterson, they're best friends. They grew up together. So we went out to Houston. Savarese invited us out there. And they had fights going on. He wanted us to come out. So we went out, and he hired a limo for us. We go in a limo, there's a guy with a mariachis or whatever.
Yeah.
Sombrero, singing Spanish, Mexican songs and stuff like that. He did that for us to just have fun and stuff like that. He was a good guy.
Yeah, I know him and Bobby Benton were promoting fights down there in Houston for a little while.
Yeah, they were good fights, and I remember going to his gym. It was a high-end gym and everything. Then there was like a steel door, and you knock on the door, and it was like a little door, and it opened up. Who are you? We're friends of Savarese. All right, come on in. They had a gambling operation going in the back. Ladies serving drinks and everything like that. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, when I hit him up, I didn't realize his father-in-law was Ted Nugent. There must
yeah.
be some crazy stories there.
Oof.
That must be some. So, you know, you've promoted shows. What transitioned you into? You're going from commissioner to now you're repping fighters. You have your own fighters. You're promoting shows. You're just following the crazy line. You're doing shows with our buddy out there, John Carlo.
Yeah, we started out doing local shows like at the Civic Center. We get like 2,500 people there. We would do really well.
But you know what? I remember when I had first moved to Connecticut, and I didn't know John at the time. I knew there were shows being put, and I know of his name that he was putting the shows on. But
Underground.
you guys did a lot of stuff, and there was a,
Yeah,
you
we
know,
did
if you
good.
look back at some of those old fight cards, you guys had some good fighters on those cards, like really
Yeah.
good local up and coming fighters on those
That's what we
shows.
tried to do. Now we do MMA fights. We haven't. The last one we did was a year ago because I got hurt. I had part of my spine taken out, the
Okay.
lamina. So I had to have like another minor operation. That was a major operation. So our next fight will probably be March or April, probably at the Civic Center or the Newburgh Unity Center. I don't like to travel too much anymore.
So strictly MMA now.
Now we're just doing the MMA, right?
Now, you're talking about the Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, correct?
Yes.
Great venue. Had boxing back in the day there. I know it did a couple of shows. I know Delvin Rodriguez fought out of
Yeah.
that ESPN show.
Yeah.
I was actually on a card there a couple of times with a couple of guys that I was working with at the time. Great venue. Hudson Valley, great tradition in boxing.
Yes. Yes. Well, it goes way back too. You had like many, many years ago, Tony Canzaneri,
Yeah.
San Country Lodge. My father and one of his brothers used to spar with him. They weren't boxers, but they wanted to get people just to spar, and they would go up there and spar. And then Floyd Patterson was at San Country Lodge. And there was another story I remember about Floyd. When he did, there was a point in time when his memory was starting to slip a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we were down at the Garden. There was a press conference about one of the fights coming up, and I couldn't be there that day because the commissioner, the governor always wanted me to be around him in case he was having trouble remembering something. I would just say to reporters, I pick up the difference.
Right.
Couldn't be there that day. And somebody asked him about, did you know so-and-so had AIDS? I didn't know that. Next thing in the Daily News, Patterson never heard of AIDS. One of his brothers died of AIDS. He knew about AIDS. But they didn't like him. They wanted their own. There's so much politics involved becoming a commissioner and stuff, appointments by governors, that everybody wants to control everything all the time. And they were trying to make him look bad. And he didn't do anything wrong. He was a really kind person. He used to, people don't know, like on a Sunday, he would deliver the Holy Eucharist to people that couldn't make it to church, at the Catholic Church. He was Catholic, the Catholic Church.
Did he live in Scarsdale?
I think for a short period of time. He lives in his training camp and his house is in New Paltz.
Yeah, but somebody had told me a story. I don't know if it was Scarsdale, but at Westchester, that and it was a non-related boxing. And they said this gentleman lived next door, and they didn't know he was a fighter, and it was Floyd Patterson. I have to think who it was. I have to go back, and I remember saying, I said, Floyd Patterson. I said, you didn't know who Floyd Patterson was? What are you, under a rock? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, but getting back to the commission, you guys carry a lot of different hats, and I'm sure there's a lot of pressure from a lot of external
Oh, yeah.
forces out there, of who wants their guy in, favoritism, making of fights, approving of fights.
The making of fights can become very difficult, and we had to have meetings at the office down in the city and stuff like that, which wasn't like a block and a half away from the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And Ralph Petrillo used to oversee it. He was really good at overseeing a lot of that stuff. And Mike Paz, he was the chief inspector.
Yeah, he's a matchmaker now.
Yeah, and so they're all good guys. They know what they're doing, but it can get very contentious at times because everybody. Maybe I should say a lot of people like to throw their balls over the shoulders, think they're bigger than what they really are. And we're going to do this and that. No, you can do what we tell you to do. These are the rules. It's got to be the same. It's got to be fair for everybody. And I was very much about that because being a judge, I was elected when I was 23 years old as a judge in the state of New York. I was the youngest judge ever elected at that point. And I wanted fairness for everybody. I wanted everybody to have a chance to speak. And I would make the decision if somebody made a good case. It's like, it's not all about me. It's like the hand. Like one finger can't control the whole hand. It takes all the fingers, all the people you have working for you. I listen to, say you're on the staff and you had an important job. I would say, what do you think? This is what I'm thinking about doing. You say, Mike, or Commissioner, I think it's good, but I think we should do this. That's a great idea. I didn't even think of that. Thank you for reminding me.
I'm like you too. You know what? It's not. See, that's one thing you're just saying, right? the sport, what happens with the sport of boxing, right? What is the sport of boxing? It's about the boxer.
Right.
Nobody gives a shit about trainers, the
Right.
sports writers,
Yeah.
this guy. You know what? We're all working for the boxer,
Exactly.
right? You guys are there for the safety, for the sanctity of the sport, to make sure fights are evenly matched, that, you're putting a good product out there, that the fans can engage with it and appreciate it. But also the human factor, and I don't think people think about this, okay? Because football's a violent sport, hockey's a violent sport. You got guys out there running 4.40s, they're 300 plus pounds, wearing equipment and a helmet, okay? But we don't have the factor of that we think that a guy could die. We don't think that a guy in hockey who's skating up the ice that checks somebody into the boards can kill that guy. Boxing, somebody can get killed, right? So the sanctioning bodies that are there to protect them, right, seem to always be questioned. Why? Why? Why is this? And what I mean by why, it's like, okay, you're either not being fair or being overly protective or not being protective. There's always that question by people outside of the sport. Or what are we doing? Or how they want to bend the rules. You can't do that in football. If they tell you to wear white fucking spikes, you wear white spikes. Otherwise, you get fined. If they tell you you're playing the Colts and it's the Giants and the Colts, that's who's playing. We're not fucking changing the game at the last minute because, this guy, we're not going to fight him or, whatever it is.
Well, your point's well taken. You know why? Like myself, we both played sports, and we had a chance to be involved overseeing sports or coaching, wherever it may be.
Right.
A lot of people never did that. They just got involved, but they don't know what it's like to get hit or to play baseball or play like basketball or be involved in a sport. We know both ends. That's the difference. Like a lot of people like to say, like to throw their, like to make them blow themselves up bigger than what they are, but never really did anything. And who the hell are you to tell me? Did you ever do it? Did you ever work out? Did you ever have to train? You ever have to get 5 o'clock in the morning and run and do this and have special food? And I did. You did.
Yeah.
They don't. And you're going to tell me what to do?
Well,
keep your mouth shut. When you do what I do, then you're allowed to stay there and then you can talk to me. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut.
Well, the famous thing is, I'm sure when you're out in a, social setting, right, and people are talking to shit and maybe they don't know you and, I was involved in boxing. The famous thing is the first, oh, yeah, I fought in Golden Gloves. That's what I hear. Now, I don't even tell people, like, look, first of all, I did not have an amateur career. I fought 3 fights. I don't proclaim to be a fighter. Right. People say to me, were you a fighter? I go, yeah, very badly. I was a very bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was for the love of the game, and I started late, right?
Yeah.
I just love the sport, right? And you know what? I'll have arguments with people. So like, listen, I learned on the job carrying buckets. I learned the old school way of any trade that you learned. They didn't hand me pads and say, go hold pads for Mike. They said, go give Mike water. Make sure Mike's got his towel. Right. You know what? When Mike's done with his gloves, takes his gloves off, clean them, cut his wraps off. You know what? Whatever the case was, you know what I mean? Make sure that we're set. You establish one. Now you start to get confidence. The fighters, everybody feels a little more confident. You get a little more. Like,
right.
Even in a job, right? So you have to do some sort of, what I call internship. Working corners is an internship.
Right.
Being around old-time trainers is an internship. That's invaluable lessons that you learn in this sport. But people think that boxing is, we can make any sort of adjustments or exceptions. We can make exceptions all the time. You see some matchmakers, they match fights. What are you thinking about?
Points well taken.
And then luckily, right, and you've been around the country, and again, I'm not throwing nobody under the bus because I don't want to do that, and that's not my place or my style. There's commissions out there I was at a fight one time, and I'll tell you this, wrapping a fighter's hand, and there wasn't an inspector there at all. Brought my guy out. The guy looked at his hands. Okay, signed off on him. Like, there was nobody there, right? And you know, there's
Dangerous.
some commissions. Yep, he's got a pulse. Put him out there. Put him out there. You know, your job is not an easy job to do, but it's a valuable job now. Especially now, the level of the athletes are evolving.
Big time.
You know, we got guys out there that are talented physically, you know, as fighters, strength, speed, power,
Everything. Supplements.
everything.
It's different.
PEDs, what's your thought? We see a lot of it.
Of the Wob side.
PEDs, steroids, any type of supplements in the bloodstream for fighters from the inspection part of it. Are you seeing more of that later on than when you first started?
Not really, because I'm not doing the pro circuit now.
Yeah.
I'm doing MMA, so you know, for the last with Giancarlo for the last 6-7 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there is more of that out there. I don't know to what degree, to be
Yeah.
totally frank. I'm not really sure.
So now you transitioned more to MMA. Do you like the MMA aspect of the sport coming out of the boxing end? What you know, when it first, you were on the ground floor when it first hit, so you knew it was coming.
I did the first MMA show above ground. Giancarlo did them. I used to have to chase Giancarlo. He used to do it. Say if he was going to do a show in New York,
Yeah.
let's just say in Poughkeepsie, and it wasn't legal. So I'd go there to shut him down. Next thing, there was nobody there. He'd be in Danbury.
Yeah.
He had the whole underground thing working.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we became friends and stuff. It was above ground. And I like it because we're not dealing with pro people. We're doing young kids. And I just enjoy the aspect of these kids, again, the ones that are really serious, the training and everything, and doing the homework, and guys that want to fight for us. There's certain criteria you have to meet to make them better citizens. And I know they all think they're going to be like super pros eventually. And this would be the biggest thing they ever did in their life is right now. And like I said, their family and friends are there, they're recognized, and they feel good about themselves. And I just love that, see with the young people.
Yeah, you know what?
As opposed to drugging and getting dying.
You know what I tell people, Mike, right? Look, being involved in pro boxing is like the cherry, right? That's the cherry on the cake, right? Not a lot of people get to have that, you know, level of fighter. And that's not always the reality. For every kid that comes in is not going to be a pro fighter. You might get 1 out of 10. Maybe it's even more. Probably more, right? But I tell people, I'm like, listen, if you fight 1 fight or 100 fights, I said at some point you can sit down with your grandkids, your wife, your family, and say, I fought 1 fight, or I fought 10 fights, or I fought 1 professional, 1 amateur. It's not something easily overlooked because what you have to do to put in it. Look, we all played baseball, basketball, football, all sports growing up, right?
Right.
We sit with our friends and say, yeah, we played softball or football, whatever we did with them, right? We all chop it up. You sit with your friends and say, yeah, I boxed last night. They're going to look at you and say, what? Yeah, I boxed a 3-round amateur fight, or I boxed a 4-round pro fight. How'd you do that? And then you break it down and they look at you like, that's
pretty
really
cool.
That's something to really kind of be proud of.
Yeah, I ran 3 Golden Gloves. I did the first one ever up here in Poughkeepsie. The first time they allowed it up here.
Yeah.
And the Daily News, at that time it was the Daily News was still running it. Now it's not. But and it was very exciting to meet the families of the kids that were fighting. They're fighting for the Golden Glove championships. And they were so enthused, and to see the family units cheering for their son or their grandson or their cousin or whatever, brothers, sisters. It was amazing. I just love that whole atmosphere. It's so healthy and so good, and they're not gang banging in the streets. They're working hard, and they're going to be somebody. You know, not in the fight game, but a good person, a good contributor to the United States of America. They do the right thing. raise their families properly. Not everybody, but by and large, they'll have a good opportunity to do that, as opposed to not being involved. And idle hands make for the devil, right?
Great.
So they're doing good stuff, and I love that aspect of it, and so does John Carlo.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I met John, doing shows up here, he put good shows on. I know he's taking a little sabbatical, but he's kind of back into it.
Oh yeah.
He really. I was lucky to have him help me in a corner with one of his guys, with Joe Parker, and it was just.
He's a great guy, Joe Parker.
Yeah, Joe Parker, and
he fought a lot of fights.
But even John, and you know what? John sells himself short, because I'm like, John, you fucking had 14 pro fights. What the hell are you talking about? You train people. You've been around the game.
He knows.
You have knowledge of the game. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? I think he sells himself short sometimes at that aspect.
Well, he's all around boxing and MMA, right? I mean, he knows both sports.
Yeah, right. He knows jiu-jitsu, right? He knows combat sports, right? And it's good. It would be good to see some of that local promotion come back, because I think there is a lot of talent. I think there's a need for it now. Maybe more so in MMA, because there are a lot of kids training MMA now.
Oh yeah, a lot.
I think a lot more than boxing right now.
We've done about 12 shows together, John and I, so far.
So I worked the show Friday night in New York, the VFL, Victory Fight League show in Manhattan. It was an amateur pro show.
Yeah.
I worked the MMA show, the pro show, in Times Square over the summer for a fighter. Wow. I mean, I'm amazed. I'm learning MMA, right? I'm working with the boxing end of it, but I'm learning the sport. It's exciting sport. And to watch these guys, right, really, really train for it, and not taking away from fighters, because I know there's fighters out there that train hard, right? It's amazing, because you got to learn three. You got to learn your ground game, striking, jiu-jitsu, wrestling.
Defense, everything.
Defense, kicks, it's more than that, right? So it's a lot going on. Yeah, that's pretty wild. So what do you see yourself for the future? Just promoting, or would you go back to being at a commissioner level or an assistant if they asked you?
No. I'm happy right where I am. I really enjoy working with the youth and seeing them excel and not get into trouble and stuff like that. And to me, it's special, because when I was a judge, being a young judge and stuff like that, I see a lot of these kids get in trouble, and now I see a lot of the kids get involved in sports, which is really good. So keep them out of trouble.
Yeah.
Because like we were saying earlier, they work hard, they're tired.
Right.
They have something to look forward to, and they're not just beating up kids. They're learning a sport.
They're being accountable. They're being held accountable.
Yeah, that's the proper. Yeah,
they're being held accountable.
And how wonderful is that, right?
Listen, I think that's something. Look, we grew up with that. You had to be accountable.
Yeah. It's different, yeah.
The funny thing is we're not far. We grew up with the thing is like, look, what I tell people is, my friends humbled me. Like, the guys I hung around with in the neighborhood, if you got a big head, they chop that shit down real fast. They'd humble you in a second. And what I mean is, like, you'd have to deal with a lot of shit. So, you don't see that today.
No.
You don't see that. And then, look, our parents held us accountable. Like, you know what? My father was like, I was successful as an athlete. He was like, okay, big deal. Go back out and keep working harder. That's one. What do you want? A band? Keep going.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Keep going.
And there was no cell phones. You went out and you came home when it got dark after dinner.
Barely. But if you were to give advice to people today, inspectors, of what they can do to make the sport better, sort of like yourself, that attitude of like, hey, I want integrity, I want to do the right thing, what would it be?
Exactly what you said, have the integrity to do the right thing. That's important, because a lot of people they're lost. A lot of young people, but you need somebody to show them direction. It's not an easy direction. You have to have discipline. And when you have discipline, then you can achieve, right? You're not wandering out there haphazardly. You have to go to practice. You have to work out. You have to try to do the right foods. You stay out of trouble. Do your homework so someday you can support a family. But keep yourself active. When you're not active, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah. One thing I got to kind of mention this because, again, us coming out of the same generation and life kind of throws different streets at you and you don't know where really you're going to end up. You, yourself and John are going down a different path now. Not only in the MMA sport, but you guys are working on movie stuff, acting stuff. How is that? Because I know that's, for me, doing this was a big learning curve. Like, for me to sit here and to interview people and to talk to people, and in the beginning, it was like really...
It is it is a learning curve. John's starting to pick up some good traction right now. I'm just starting. But it's something different, something that it's intriguing.
But we got to call his agent now to get a hold of him, right? I can't call him direct anymore.
That's right. You got to call the agent.
But I mean, both of you guys, how did it come about? Now, I think it came about first more for you, and then you kind of spoke with John.
Yeah, some people that were filmmakers and wanted to do some filming, and one was a boxing story, and involved with the mob and everything. We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So they filmed me, and they liked what they saw. We don't know if it's going to go any place, but it's fun and it's something to do, and I have the time to do it, and I enjoy it.
Right.
And John's already made some nice headway, and
he just picked up a nice role. He's got a little steady. He went from eating spaghetti to talking now on screen. So he's like, I told him keep going. He's never
good.
Know. Yeah, he is.
He's got the look, first of all, and he's got that gruffness to him.
Yeah.
Tough man gruffness.
Yeah.
Nah. But John is really a kind guy. But but when you see him, you don't know, if he's going to explode on you or not. But he has a kind heart. And
he's emotional.
Good people. Very.
He's emotional.
But you couldn't meet a nicer guy.
No,
he's the type of guy that if I got in trouble out there, he'd back me up and say afterwards, Mike, what you did was wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have done that. And I try to do the same thing with people too. Like if you and I were out someplace and you did something that maybe was questionable, I'd fight the guys that are trying to fight you. I go outside and say, come on, man, what you did there, you got to be careful with that. But I'm going to back you up 100%.
Yeah, but I'm not going to encourage you to do it again if it's the wrong thing to do. I'm with you. Right. You know what? We're not. But no, John is definitely one of a kind individual.
Oh, he's a character.
He's a good guy. And I wish both you guys luck. And I hope they pick something up for you so we can have you both back here and we can have a little promotion.
Well, if we do, we're going to have you in it too. So
yeah, well, I'm ready. I told John I'm ready, but he's going to have to give me lessons at this point.
We've both met some of the people that have interest, and so if things get picked up, like in March, we're supposed to go down to a set of a major motion picture thing.
Nice.
And to give them input on, part of it involves a boxing theme. So maybe you might want to come with us too,
Yeah, I'd be honored to go with you guys.
It would be fun.
We'll go grab something to eat. Well, what time are we going? Because we got to check John. He works crazy hours. He gets up early.
He goes to bed early.
He might be napping during the day.
Well, you got to say rosary during the day.
Well, I'm all right with the rosary part.
Me too. He does that every day.
It's when I call him at 2:00 and he's napping that I'm a little worried.
That's what he does.
No, I'm only kidding, John, because I know you're listening out there, buddy, but we love you.
You're the best, John.
But Mike, I really appreciate you coming down here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I hope to have you back again because I think there's a part 2 to this of some sort. And then
I would love to
with you guys and real, giving us a little behind the scenes of what really goes on in boxing. I mean, what people don't understand of what my concept was is like not just talking to fighters. There are so many different dynamics in the sport of boxing, from the fighters to the trainers to the commissioners, inspectors, writers. There's so many different layers to this sport that people bring that the fan doesn't understand what's going on. But I really, really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I wish you a happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you and your family. And,
you.
It's Coach Dave McDonough, Coach's Corner Podcast. Train hard, train smart, and we'll see you in the next round.
Thank you, sir.
Don't call me sir.